Hello, fabulous Nova Scholars. Maud and I are back again for another bit of Read Aloud. When we last left off, Scheherazade was telling the story of the Sultan Muhammad, or Mahmud, and he had everything he could want, but he was still very unhappy. And then a strange old man came to his palace and showed him all kinds of disasters and tragedies happening to his kingdom, and then grabbed him by the neck, pushed him into a fountain in the middle of the room, and all of a sudden he was on the beach in a totally different country, and someone found him, would not listen that he was a king, and made him work in his mill by walking all day on a treadmill, kind of like a giant hamster wheel, to turn the gears, simple machine, of the mill to grind the flour. And he's been doing that, and his feet are getting all hard from walking on the wood all day, and his hair is just matted and hanging from his head. Can you picture that? What a disaster. What a terrible place to stop reading. Anyway, here is today's story. One day, a shepherd boy was passing the mill and heard Mahmud cry out like this. "Good day, foreigner," he said. "Is this kind of work not to your taste?"
"Oh, good shepherd, unfasten me from the wheel, or go to my master and plead with him to let me go," said Mahmud, hanging his panting head through the spokes of the treadwheel.
"Well, I suppose you realize," said the shepherd, "that legally only foreigners can be made to work like this. And I'm sure you know that you would no longer be a foreigner if you had a local girl for your wife."
"Oh, fetch me a servant girl, fetch me a milkmaid, fetch me your sister, gentle shepherd. Fetch some woman whom I can marry and escape this terrible work," begged Mahmud.
"I see your bad fortunes have brought you a great distance from your native land, for you do not understand the law in these parts. In order to find a bride, you only have to stand at the door of the public baths. As each lady comes out, ask her if she's married or single. It is written that Allah will set you the wife of your deserving. The first single woman need only say, 'No, sir, I am not married,' and then the two of you will be man and wife immediately."
"Maudie, you are not helping. Sit."
That evening, when the mill owner led Mahmud out of the wheel to feed him his bucket of beans, the Sultan bolted across the field and ran all the way to the city, sleeping on the steps of the public baths until late the next morning. The first thing he noticed on opening his eyes was that the women of this country went unveiled. The first female to leave the public baths was a radiant young girl with foaming golden hair falling below her waist. She smiled encouragingly at Mahmud as he gabbled his words.
Are you married, child of honey? For if you are not—"
"I married only last week," she said, and patted his sleeve. "May Allah send you a fair wife."
"Oh, you are married, aren't you?"
he asked the next woman who emerged from the baths. She was about his mother's age, with the shape of a bag of bricks, and a face as fair as the bark of a baobab tree. "Oh, I wish I were not," she said, pinching his cheek and winking hugely. "Oh, I could just eat you up, you handsome boy."
Are you married?" Mahmud shouted into the shadows of the bathhouse as the next slap of feet approached the doors. The footsteps quickened into a run, and a voice called back, like the call of a baboon through the shadowy rainforest.
"No, sunshine, light of my future life. Let me look at you, dearie. Oh, aren't you scrumptious, little boy, my big masterful groom? Oh, no, sir, I'm not married." The head like an ox had been joined to the body of a hippopotamus, or so it seemed to Mahmud as his bride galloped toward him into the light, with arms spread wide and hair still damp and sticking out in spikes. With a face still red from the steam baths, the feet thudded closer with unavoidable fate. As she went to take him in her arms, he ducked beneath her mace-like fists and fled into the hammam, that means the bathhouse. Women in the bath screamed and clutched up towels. Masseurs, that's the bath helpers, shouted and grabbed at him as he scampered past. Steam swallowed him up,
and the slapping of sandals on stone floors pursued him, shouting, "Oh, come back, sweetie sugar cake. I don't mind that you look like a donkey. We're married now. Come back, sugar lump." He ducked down a side corridor which had no end door, so he slipped behind a curtain partway along, skidded on the wet floor with flailing arms and a prayer to Allah, and plunged over the edge of a pool full of large pink ladies. Down and down he plunged until 7 colors were flashing in his eyelids as spent air was fluttering in his lungs. The fat pink ladies seemed to be holding him under the water with strength of massive hands, and as recent misfortunes gathered in his memory, Mahmud wondered if he should even struggle. Lifting the Sultan's head after dipping it into the drinking fountain for only a few moments, the bearded old sage called for a chair and seated Sultan Mahmud while he recovered his breath. Mahmud looked around him at the anxious faces of his wife, his children, his courtiers, but they all burst out laughing when he spluttered, "Where is my hideous wife? Where are all the fat pink ladies? Where are my ears and hooves?" "Listen, Sultan Mahmud," said the old man wrapped in nothing but his beard. "I have shown you the life you might have led, the twists of fate that might have overturned your happiness, the evil luck which may have made you suffer every day." Has the city been saved? Have the floodwaters dropped? Has the fire been put out? Have the locusts gone?" asked Mahmud, rushing from one window to another to look out over his tranquil, peaceful kingdom. "Oh, those things happened only in your imagination, Mahmud, which I am able to paint as an artist paints canvas," said the old man, lighting a paper spill at the open log fire. "That's like a little match, but it's made out of paper. But all of them could have happened to you, had Allah decreed it. If all and every one of these disasters fallen on your head, you silly king, then you might have had cause to be sad. But none of them are written in your destiny. Therefore, be happy, or you will shame Allah with your ingratitude for his priceless gifts. You have a lovely wife, beautiful children, a thriving kingdom, a powerful throne, and a time of peace. And a body more lovely to box up your soul in than the old frame that I house my magic wisdom." So saying, the gnarled, rattled old man lit the trailing end of his beard, and a spiral column of green fire burned where his beard had coiled around his body. The green vapor made everyone turn aside to cough, and when they turned back, the old man was gone, and nothing but a scrap of yellow sailcloth lay at Mahmud's feet. That's what his shirt was made of when he had to work like a donkey. "I would weep for the loss of a good friend," he said to his wife as their eyes met. "But I have banished all tears out of my eyes and banished all blackness out of the kingdom. I now declare that any one of my loyal subjects, however lowly their position, is granted the right to banish me, Sultan Mahmud, if I ever sulk or brood or mope or mow or fail to thank Allah hourly for all the good things life has given me. Come now, there has been too much time wasted in moping and moods. I wish it written letters 100 inches high all along the palace wall. The Sultan Mahmud is the most fortunate man on Allah's golden earth, and I will fight to the death any stranger who disputes it." As Scheherazade finished the story of the 2 lives of Sultan Mahmud, she trembled in fear that her husband would mistake the story for criticism. But his eyes rested on her as a brown bird rests momentarily on a fence and then flies away. "I'm sorry, Scheherazade," he said. "My ears have delighted in your story like strains of music heard through a wall, but my thoughts have not traveled with it tonight. I have not been listening to you. Promise me you will tell me another story tomorrow, and I will apply my ears to listening." To hear you is to love you and to obey, replied Scheherazade. But she shook her head as she walked slowly back to her rooms, and inside her heart shook of her own accord. So things are not going well for Scheherazade. The Sultan is just unhappy and not paying attention anymore. Well, we'll see what happens with her next story, The Tale of the Leg of Mutton. Mutton is meat that comes from a sheep, so we'll see what happens with that tomorrow. Hope you're staying well and using your fortitude like the Sultan Mahmud did at the end of the story. I know it's not easy, but we have lots of good things to be grateful for. I'm grateful for you, even if I can't see you face to face for a while. I miss you, and I hope you're doing well. Bye, scholars.